Oh shit. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Can everyone hear me? Hello, hello, hello. Wait, is this the non-spoilers? What the? Wait, why is that? Why is that? Freaking. Oh, really? It changes between them, huh? A minute. Gotta change that. I'll go to the editor. This is open discussion. And this color is like there, and it's like roughly bluish. Done. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Okay, so I just actually have to change that. That's wonderful. That's just wonderful. Okay. No sleep squad. Yeah, no sleep squad. Oh, I'm feeling tired, and I have a really busy day tomorrow, so it's like, I'm all over the place. And then this movie came out tonight, though that was so weird. I'll get to that in a minute. All right. We'll wait till 12:30 for people to keep filtering in. And then after that, we'll get into the actual meat of the video. I hope not. Let me check my own feed. I'm getting my own bad feed. What the hell? No. Go live. Live. An error occurred. What the? What the deuce? Did I just die? Weird. Because I'm getting stuttering on my end. Although I think it's a YouTube problem. It's not one of my problems. I don't think. Dropped frames 11%. What's my streaming like right now? Settings. Output. My bitrate's only 25,000. I'll lower that to 2,000. I can't while streaming. Huh. Yeah, I'm dropping frames. I don't know why. I shouldn't be. Yeah, I'm dropping frames. I don't know why. I shouldn't be. All right. Well, no, it's still got 2 minutes. Still got 2 minutes before we can really get into this. And we only have 13 viewers. I thought we'd have more. Interesting. Yeah, I'm 14 frames. I don't know why. I shouldn't be. All right. What the frick? You need to watch YouTube Rewind 2018. Yeah. No. What the hell? Alright, now the stream health is good. Who do I believe? Do I believe my setup or do I believe YouTube? Now we're down to 12 people. Wunderbar. One more minute for people to trickle in or trickle out, apparently, because I'm just dropping like flies, apparently. Fatman does know about this. I invited him on if you wanted to join, and I'm technically in a call in Discord with... Oh, what's this? That's Toppy. Um. All right, Night Infinity Rocks. Sorry you didn't really hit the discussion point. Yeah, we're all different personalities of the Horde. Okay, it's 12:31. Probably about a good time to get started anyway. So, hello everyone. I assume you know who I am if you're on the channel. I'm not going to bother trying to introduce myself, but I just got back from seeing Glass, which is the 2019 sequel to both Unbreakable and Split, which are two of M. Night Shyamalan's best films. And if you don't know the premises of both of them, Unbreakable is the premise of David Dunn, played by Bruce Willis, being a mundane, normal man who basically learns that he has superpowers. Or at least it seems that way. It sort of has that Shyamalan level of intrigue where you're not sure if he has powers or not. And that... did the stream die out for a moment there? I'm not entirely sure what happened to that. Yeah, I'm dropping frames like a motherfucker. What the hell's going on? Can you please stop dropping frames for 10 seconds? Please. Guys, am I glitching with you? Are you seeing these glitches? It's telling me I'm dropping frames, but... Alright, open settings. Alright, 1 minute. I'm going to briefly end the stream. Stay tuned. I'll be... Alright, I dropped the bit rate. Hopefully that's going to lower the load on this thing. Okay. So, where was I? Right. Unbreakable is the story of David Dunn, who is Bruce Willis, played by Bruce Willis, who learns that he may or may not have superpowers, and it's the entire story of him kind of coming to terms with that. Split, meanwhile, is a story of one person who is many, a person with DID, what is it? I'm forgetting what DID stands for. But basically what they used to call multiple personality disorder. And the entire idea is behind it is that this one guy, Kevin, you learn is the original guy. Dissociative identity disorder. Thank you very much, Henry G. Dissociative identity disorder, this guy named Kevin ends up, he has it, and he's basically going on a killing spree, killing these young girls, and the big twist at the end of that story is that it's a super villain origin story in the same vein that Unbreakable is sort of the superhero origin story for Bruce Willis's character. And I'm not going to get into the details of those because there's actually a lot of really good details. I mean, Unbreakable is my personal favorite film of all time. So, going into this, when I learned that Split was a sequel, I immediately saw it. I immediately just jumped out of my way to go see it on DVD. Because that was when I learned that it was a sequel. Everyone kept it under wraps for such a long time, and it was never advertised, so I didn't know. But then I learned that they were both going to be followed up by this movie, Glass, and I was really excited going into this, but also very cautious because M. Night Shyamalan has a M. Night Shyamalan is kind of hit or miss. I mean, everyone knows that there's a Shyamalan curse that happens. I'm proud to say that Glass functions and is entertaining through and through. It's a good film from start to finish. It's not a bad film by any measure. There's some weird parts in there. It has the same kind of Shyamalan quirkiness in the script, where a lot of characters give sort of very blunt exposition in certain regards. And that sometimes works and sometimes comes off as kind of a little cringy, but it's it was good. It was good. It was a very solid film. And the premise of Glass, and this will be minor spoilers for both Split and Unbreakable, because this is a sequel to that, so it'll definitely bleed in. The Beast, or should I say the Beast, the Horde, whatever you want to call whatever Kevin has become with these multiple personalities, has basically been on the run, and David Dunn, in the intervening time between in the last 19 years that we've seen him, has basically gone full-time vigilante, actually breaking into people's homes and stopping bad guys, beating the crap out of bad guys who are doing terrible things on the street. There's actually a bit of a contention with the very first example they have. That I find it kind of silly how they brought that in, but it kind of works. And actually, now that I think about it, ties into the end of the film. But I'll get to that in the spoilers discussion, because then I'll be going into the juicy bits of things. But the broad premise is, due to certain circumstances, both he and the Beast, David Dunn and Kevin, are captured and are basically locked up in a psychiatric institute where this doctor lady is trying to convince them, and not unrightfully so. In some, you kind of start learning there's more complexity to this, sort of. She's basically trying to convince them that what they're doing, the superheroism they have, the superpowers they have, are all delusions. They're not actually there. That those aren't those behaviors aren't healthy, and they're just going to lead to people getting hurt, and really they just haven't met a point where they've really gotten seriously injured yet. And along with this is the main antagonist from the end of Unbreakable, Mr. Glass, Elijah, who is played by Samuel L. Jackson. And, because these three are suddenly put in a confined space, shenanigans start happening. I'm not going to get into spoilers, but not yet, at least. Hi, Kenji, you just came in. I'm summarizing the rough points. I'm about to get into what I liked and what I didn't like about the film in a broad sense, non-spoiler sense. Acting from the main three, actually the main four, sort of, was superb. Now, the head lady, the psychiatric lady, you think that maybe she's a bad actress. But there's something there's a Shyamalan twist at the end. There's a Shyamalan twist, I'll reveal that kind of peels back exactly what's happening, and how she behaves throughout the entire film suddenly makes a whole lot more sense. So those four, very good performances. Then there was the girl from Split. And I was very surprised to learn that returning to his role was the actor from the original, from Unbreakable, who played Spencer Treat Clark, who played his son in Unbreakable, returned to the role as Joseph Dunn, and I was very, very happy to see that. I was so ecstatic when he showed up in the film, and I'm like, and he's not just there as window dressing, he's there throughout the whole film. Problem is, he has some of the more awkward line deliveries in the entire, some of the more hollow deliveries in the entire film that just don't feel quite right, and that's a shame, because I love how his character panned out in this. Conceptually, and overall, his appearance overall is interesting enough that he actually carried the film solely on that. Just see these big black eyes that you think he would have grown out of as a child, but no, he has these really like I want to see him in more things. I think he can refine his acting chops and just be really good. But then there was Anya Taylor-Joy returning as Casey from Split, and she was also a little hit or miss. I blame the dialogue in her case. Again, I meant the Shyamalan dialogue has never been quite the best. They've always been kind of blunt force trauma in some places. So, again, the dialogue isn't the strongest part of the film, though there are some brilliant poetic moments. Like, is it the acting or the direction? It's kind of the direction mixed with the writing a little bit. Because here's the thing, Shyamalan likes characters that are very grounded in reality, but use very poetic language and talk in very analytical terms. So you just kind of have to adapt to that as these are all very real characters. They are all very real people, but they're all using very, very upper echelon language. They're using very, very important speech, very, very articulate speech, with some exception. For example, James McAvoy, his many different personalities have such a birth. I mean, McAvoy is the shining star of acting in this, even though I love Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis is my favorite actor, mostly because of Unbreakable and a few other films that he's been in, Die Hard, namely. He gets, I mean, it's so weird because Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson, they're very grounded characters. They're very, like, quiet, contemplative. They don't say a lot. They don't, Mr. Glass goes off on, you know, these long monologues because he's the big bad guy. I mean, you kind of know that from the get-go. But, like, it's really, he himself, especially during the very early parts of the film, is very, very solemn, very quiet. So McAvoy, for the most part, is the one that probably fills most of the dialogue in this movie single-handedly. He is just that talkative and that energetic, and he just puts it all into this behavior. It's fantastic. Charlene Woodward also reprises her role as Mrs. Price, Elijah's mother. And that was also very good. But overall, it's a good film. It is a very good film. A lot of occasional weird acting notwithstanding. A lot of likable characters. Everyone is likable to some degree and understandable. And the big thing, though, is how this movie ends is gut-wrenching, especially for longtime fans of both Unbreakable and even the more recent fans of Split. This movie will make you uncomfortable at the very end, and I'll get into why in just a bit, because I'm about to dive into spoilers. Overall, I do highly recommend you go out and see it. Let me turn down my gain just a little bit. Turning down my gain because I'm spiking a bit. I do highly recommend you go out and see this film. It is incredibly good. It doesn't do anything super crazy. That's another big point. It doesn't do anything super over the top. And you think it will. You think it's going to actually embrace this new fad about superheroes and stuff with all the themes it has going on about superheroes in the real world and delusions and all that stuff. You think they're going to try something super over the top, but it's very smart in that it doesn't. It knows how to hold itself back, and I'm very appreciative for it, because the fights never get bigger than anything that you could conceptually see a superhuman, not like a god, but a superhuman taking on in real life. But also within the realms of possibility that a normal human at peak physical condition could possibly fight off these odds. It's never 100% you're ever really confirmed whether or not these guys are superhuman. I'll get into it. So those are my thoughts. Definitely go out and see it, especially if you're a fan of Unbreakable and Split. Just know that it's going to hurt. It is going to hurt a lot. So, I'm going to switch it over to spoilers. I'm going to give everyone that doesn't want to be spoiled on this film 30 seconds to a minute to get out of here. I'm going to give you a minute flat to get out of here. So at 12:46, 12:47, we'll start talking spoilers. Actually, let me take where, let me see. Okay, yeah. At 12:46:20, we'll talk spoilers. So yeah, filter on. Shoot out. We're talking spoilers soon. I gotta swap this over. What the? That's not what I needed. Good. Okay. All right, spoilers time, though I will answer that question, Perfect Harbinger. I saw the new trailer, and I am excited for it, especially because Mysterio's in it. Hydro Man and Sandman might be in it, which are an interesting pair, but I remember there was an episode in the animated show that was all about them. Yeah, I know most people aren't affected by it, but some people just don't want spoilers. Anyway, I gave my out. We're now in spoiler discussion. So, they all die. And, as in, David Dunn, Kevin / the Horde, and Mr. Glass all die in the film. They all die at the very end. And the film does a great job of just pulling the rug out from under you in this matter. Because the entire premise is that David Dunn... Let me run through the film in its plot base. Is that David Dunn is trying to maybe they do. I don't know, Kenji. Maybe they do. So David Dunn at the start of the film is basically, he's doing his vigilante job, but he's actually targeting the Horde. He's trying to capture this guy, and it's only like 2 or 3 weeks after the events of Split, as far as you can tell. So, you know, this is recent. He's going after them. He's going after the Horde, and at the very beginning, he finds the Horde, saves some cheerleaders, and in the process, both of them are captured by the police. And this is where they're taken to the psychiatric institute and interviewed by this lady who gives them the 9 degree, who basically just tries to tell them that their superhero delusions are fantasy and that they're maybe upper echelon human, but they're still within the realms of humanity. And as it turns out, that as she goes along, she's slowly trying to convince them, and they slowly are starting to believe it. But Mr. Glass comes in and starts actually pulling the strings behind things and convinces the Beast to work with him. And he does this whole escape route. And all before this, it's revealed and definitely set up very well that there's cameras all over the place trying to watch him because they know how smart he is, and if he tries to escape, they're going to know. This comes into play in so many different ways. It's very well set up. There's a lot of well-executed things in this film. It's one of the reasons I really did love it. But at the same time, there are things that hurt the kokoro. The kokoro. That's it. That's the Japanese word for heart, I believe. So he basically makes this entire way to get out. For the record, one of the coolest things about this is that David Dunn, his son, is his guy in the chair. I love that. I absolutely love that. Like, the minute that his son appeared, I'm like, wait, who is this guy? Who is this guy that is in a chair? We've never seen this character. Did he befriend someone? And, like, he said, like, as they started talking, there's more talk between them, and I got this really familial relationship. I'm like, no! And then he says, Dad, and I'm like, no! And I was like, yeah! It was awesome! It was the best. It was the best. So... Alright, so basically Mr. Glass concocts this whole escape strategy. And just so happens, I don't know why, all 3 of the big family members were there. You had David's son, you had Elijah's mother, and you had Casey there, who was sort of the friend to Kevin, who tried to basically bring him down. And ultimately she did. It was actually a really heartwarming scene. Everything between those two was just heart-wrenching. The 3 of them were there at the same time, but there's this massive showdown where Elijah convinces everyone that he's taking the Beast to this new tower they're building downtown, which actually I think is a funny little nod to Nakatomi Plaza from Die Hard. I think there's a little, like, it's a bit of a nod there about a new advanced state-of-the-art technology building there. But basically he convinces everyone, including the Doctor and such, that he's going to go there and blow it up with the Beast, because it's going to be the grand opening and all these cameras are going to be there, and we're going to show this showdown between the Beast and David Dunn. And if David doesn't show up, the Beast is just going to wreck ham on everyone. And so David breaks out of his cell and chases after them. And it's revealed after doing some research by, Joseph, the son, does some research and reveals that Kevin's father, one of the key reasons for him having the emotional split, the reason he was left alone with an abusive mother, died on the same train as David survived in Unbreakable. And that was actually something you could pick up on in Split if you were paying attention. It's a really nice touch if you paid attention to things. So that gets revealed, and so the Beast fucking snaps and kills Elijah in such a way he just basically smashes the guy's sternum, and so he slowly bleeds internally to death, slowly, painfully. But what ends up happening is that there's a massive showdown, and they're demonstrating their superhuman prowess. They're just going all out on each other. They're punching through the metal walls of cars and such. David traps some police officers by bending a steel bar around a cargo container to keep them in. And all throughout this, there's some weird camera angles going on, showing the camera's perspectives from the mounted cameras on the hospital. And you're like, that's kind of weird. Why are they doing it? And we'll get back to that, because at the end of this, the Beast and David ultimately fight to a tie. They can't beat each other. Even weakening David in water, the Beast can't beat him. David manages to escape. But Casey manages to catch up with the Beast and talk him down. And there's this really heart-to-heart moment where she talks him down. Kevin comes back into to his mind, and they're having this moment of heart-to-heart. And a laser sight lands over Kevin and kills him. It shoots him, and he basically starts bleeding out. Because it's basically the idea is he's only superhuman when he's the Beast. Or at least you think at this point that maybe he's not superhuman. But then something weird happens. You're kind of in this iffy, okay, was he only superhuman as the Beast? Was he never superhuman? But then something happens where it pans over to the sniper, and they very pointedly focus on his wrist, where he has a clover symbol. And this is where this is the only misgiving I have with the film, and I don't know if it's a misgiving or just an uneasy feeling of, I don't know how to feel about it, ultimately. But we'll get to that. And then it pans down from there to show the Doctor, and she's unerringly calm about all of this. Just eerily calm about all this going down around her. And then we see David, who is still recovering from almost drowning in a water tank that was there near the hospital, because they give a really good explanation why it was there, but there was a water tank near this building. And you think the police are just going to arrest him, but no, this police officer drags David over to where there's a puddle in the ground, in a pothole, and starts drowning him. And starts drowning him just horrifically. And, my heart, I was sweating. I had to change shirts. I would be wearing a black shirt, but I was sweating bullets. I was starting to tear up a little because this was just fucking brutal to see a childhood hero of mine just getting drowned brutally in front of me. And before he goes out, the Doctor has him touch her hand, and if you know about Unbreakable, he can see flashes of people's sins when he touches them. And that's how he finds villains. And so it flashes to her at a dinner party. And when a waiter finally leaves this dinner party, the doors close, and everything goes quiet. And then one person stands up and starts talking and says, "Now we're all here." And effectively, she reveals in later detail about this to Elijah when she's talking to him in dying breaths, that he was right, that Elijah was right, that heroes in comic books, that heroes in Greek myth and legend, heroes all throughout history were based upon real people doing extraordinary things. And that there is a society of other normal people that have tasked themselves with killing and suppressing these people in order to keep balance in the world. Basically, an Illuminati to keep balance on the superhuman population, which is why we have never heard of superhumans whatsoever. And they always keep, they have very interesting ways of meeting, and it's a very realistic way of meeting, even though it's kind of fucking creepy with the way everyone goes silent in all these public places. But her idea in this modern day and age was to... She was kind of a revolutionary in this group by suggesting that they're sort of like the version, superhuman version of the Illuminati from Deus Ex. They are just suppressing the superpowered to keep balance and order in the world. It's very, very interesting in that. And basically, she was the radical one by suggesting, hey, we don't have to kill these people. We just have to convince them not to use their full power. I'm going to raise the spoilers up a little bit. We just have to convince them not to use their full powers, convince them that they're not superhuman, and just to go on living normal lives. And she almost succeeded. So she actually, like, at the end of the film, she gets told effectively, like, that she can basically continue her research into this as a potential opportunity. But, and here's where, like this was at the very end of the film, this was heart-wrenching for me, learning all this, because I wanted all of them to succeed. I didn't want Elijah to succeed. I didn't want the Beast to succeed. I wanted Kevin to get cured, obviously, but I knew Elijah probably wasn't going to make it out of this. I knew the Beast wasn't probably going to make it out of this. But I thought David might. And I was sitting there and watching him as he just again and again just down into the puddle until he stopped moving. And holy shit, man. Oh shit. That hit me, man. I'm tearing up right now because Jesus Christ. That is one of my worst fears and a way to go. Just the idea of suffocating in a puddle. It's like, holy shit, man. But then she's going through the comic books. She's kind of just browsing the comic book store, I think, kind of being sentimental about things. And she overhears some nerds talking about the super villain mastermind. And it's the reason they're the mastermind is that they always have the real plan. That they always trick people into looking in one direction but not looking in another. And that gets her thinking, and she panics and runs back to the hospital, where she finds out that all the camera feed had been permanently routed, not permanently, but had been routed to an off-site source that had recorded everything that had gone on. So the secret society that had scrubbed everything, that had hidden everything, suddenly there's a massive breach of this footage. And the end of the film is the three characters of the three related characters, Joseph, Elijah's mother, and Casey, all getting the files and a voice message from Elijah about this. And the end of the film is them sending it out to make it go viral. And this ties back to how the movie started, which is David Dunn breaking some caps on a bunch of people doing the knockout game, which the knockout game is not a thing that, at least as I understand it, is not a thing that actually happened. It's just an instance of a couple of different assholes being assholes. But I give it to them that it actually set up very well the idea of things going viral. It set up this new society, all dependent on computers and such, in a very subtle way. It was very good. No, Mr. Glass was not the good guy all along. He was still a mass murderer who killed people in hordes just to prove that superhumans existed. He was not a hero. He was not a good guy. He was just the one who blew the lid off things. He was a villain that did one sliver of good, And even that's questionable if you side with the Illuminati on this. If you side with the Illuminati on this, he's the worst villain of them all. But if you side with the good guy, if you side with David Dunn, if you side with the good personalities of the Horde, because even at the end of the film, you learn that there's only 10 of the 24 personalities that are really on the Beast's side in the Horde anymore. When we're finally free of the Patriots, yeah, he was basically Revolver Ocelot, but like mass murderer. I mean, I'm not sure how many people Revolver Ocelot managed to kill in his time, but you basically learn that they reveal the truth to everyone, and there's this really beautiful shot as the camera pans back, showing all three of them in the matching colors, and Joseph's wearing green for the green poncho that David Dunn wore. We see Mrs. Price wearing purple for her son, and Casey, not Chloe. I keep wanting to say Chloe for some reason. Casey wearing yellow, which is what kind of signified the Beast. It pans out on them sitting in the train station that started this all, watching as 2 hours pass by, and the video starts to go viral and getting picked up by the news media. And so the ultimate twist was that Elijah wins. And his last words are, "It's not a final showdown," because everyone was alluding to the fact that he was trying to play up a final showdown. It's not a final showdown. It's an origin story. And his mother's last words, which are the last words of the film, are, it's quoted here, "It's the beginning of a universe." And so I thought it was just incredibly smart in that regard. I think it was just... Did you have to kill David Shyamalan? Did you have to kill him, please? Why? Why? I actually, I legitimately want to write for this universe, though, now. I would... Shyamalan, if you are listening to this, I beg you, let me write for your universe. I would be honored to try and do it the service that you have done it here, because I think this is the most realistic take you could have gotten on it. I mean, aside from the stilted dialogue in places, I think this was just fantastic. This was absolutely brilliant. And... Christ, I don't know how to feel about this, man. I'm exhausted. I didn't want David to die. But I mean, like, Joseph carrying on his legacy, that's really cool. I don't know. This is a solid film. Just such a good film that just... Alright, so little points about the cinematography is still fantastic. There's a lot of great shots. It's not quite as good, I would say, as the original Unbreakable, at least in terms of things. And it might not be as good as Split. It might be on par with Split. I think Split was a better self-contained story. Why do I think the critics didn't fall in love with it? Because I don't think they were going in with it with the right people. Whenever people talk about... Oh, someone just subscribed. I gotta lower this for this. No. Armatrexu, thanks for subscribing. When people go into... Like, they went into Split, they didn't know what to think about it. When they went into this, people kept saying that Unbreakable... The Nostalgia Critic was probably the one that I got the most mad at when he was talking about Unbreakable. Because he was like... Yes, you do have to follow the previous two films. It is a sequel that you probably should know more about the previous films going into this. But I think it stands on its own okay. It adds so much more. It's kind of like Infinity War in that regard, where I think you could get through it theoretically... Okay, it's not as bad as Infinity War. Infinity War, I think, bad in the sense that there's so much going on in Infinity War that it helps to know. Here, you only have really 2 points of origin, and even then, they're nicely summarized in the film. But the reason why I think people don't like this film as much is that they want it to be something else. They want it to be a superhero film, a modern superhero film, but that's not what it is. It's a grounded, realistic superhero story. It's what Kick-Ass wishes it could be. Because Kick-Ass is all about the gore, the more realistic gore, and all the characters cursing and being super savvy on the tropes and then having those tropes get turned up on them. But no, this is what probably would realistically happen in reality. There'd be a bunch of people being like, hey, yeah, it's probably not good to have a bunch of superheroes running around. Let's ground them. Let's kill them off and keep them hidden. And now we have all these superheroes that they're not superheroes. They're not gods among men. They're not throwing lightning bolts. They're not. I mean, there might be ones in this universe. We don't know exactly. We don't know how many have been killed. We don't know how many of them get stopped. But David Dunn is just someone who's incredibly strong and effectively unbreakable. They want it to be a fantasy when it's a drama hero film. It's all about these characters being heroes or being characters. It's all about extraordinary people in a realistic world. Superhero films in the modern day tend to be extraordinary people in an extraordinary world, which actually works very well in its favor, but I mean, it's not what this is. I think they're just wanting it to be something that it's not. This is just about fantastic people in a very mundane world, and it works in that regard. And the fact that this opens it up to be a fantastic world is what has me interested. I don't know if they want to continue it. Yeah, we don't know much about the Silver-Eyed Warriors. That's the thing that gets me is I mean, it's I don't know. I don't know if that's really equivalent. I don't want to talk about RWBY because that's such a mess of writing at this point that it doesn't lend itself to talking about a narrative that's singularly cohesive. But yeah, so there were other points in the film that were interesting. For one example, Audrey died. The wife from Unbreakable is dead. She's 5 years dead in this, which is interesting. I don't know why they chose it. I guess maybe because they couldn't fit her into the film character-wise. And it does kind of lend itself that characters would... Like, the idea they try to play on is that Joseph and David fled into their superhero personas because of this grief, this heartache, because the mother and wife died, and that's interesting, especially because it does seem like him and Audrey stayed together, but maybe not. We're not quite clear on that. It's never quite revealed whether or not David ultimately divorced his wife. And I kind of like that ambiguity. I like that ambiguity because that was like a core tenet of Unbreakable, was leaving things with a very ambiguous feel to them. Even though they do state out here that he was superhuman in this film, it works, I think. It still works. What were other interesting moments in here? It's kind of interesting that David Dunn runs his own security store now. He runs like a shop for security stuff. Because you think kind of part through the film that his son is going to be the one hacking into these things. But no, his son doesn't do a lot in this film. Almost at all, besides reveal the big plot point and struggle with his own internal drama. He reveals the plot point that the Horde's father was killed by Elijah. Let's see. What else to touch upon? There's a. I don't know what else to touch upon with this. Yeah, no one needs to be an uber badass. Like, that's another thing that I find kind of frustrating with a lot of these big name films, and there was actually a fan fiction that really highlighted it that I read, where just every major character had to play an integral part in solving the main problem. And, like, I understand that, you know, no character go to waste, but at the same time, sometimes a character can be present just to be a character, especially in a grounded, realistic setting. So, for example, every single character in Black Panther solved the problem in Black Panther. Not everyone. I mean, for a good example, Aquaman. Aquaman did this well. Aquaman's mother is pretty prevalent throughout the film. She doesn't do jack shit. She literally shows up and explains one or two things. But she's mostly there for the emotional catharsis. She's there because she's a character in this universe. She's there because she would naturally be there, but wouldn't naturally contribute. There's a line between making a character feel useless and making a character feel present. And I think this film actually balances that out very well. So yeah, the another thing I wanted to note was the music was kind of disappointing. That was a big point of contention with me, especially because I wrote, even though I've never released it because it's not very good, I wrote my very first novel to the Unbreakable soundtrack. And that was one of the big things about Split that I loved, was how it brought in the Unbreakable soundtrack at the very end to cue those that were keen enough to listen into the fact that it was in the Unbreakable universe, like 3 or 4 minutes before David Dunn got on screen. And the fact that only a few bits of the Unbreakable soundtrack got used here, only like 3 or 4 scenes that I can really distinctly remember it, was a very big disappointment. I think they really missed a good chance. I almost cried when David was being drowned. If they had hit me with the main theme from Unbreakable, I'm playing that like in my mind right now simultaneously, and oh man, dude, that would have fucking hit me like a truck. I would have bawled openly in the theater. I have to actually resist that now because that would have been so painful to watch. That sad, heroic score that really made me love the first film, just playing out David Dunn's last moments. I can't get over how hurt I am by that. It is painful to watch. Oh, I think I'm running out of steam. I've talked about this for what? Probably an hour now? Close to that? It's I love this film, but it tore my heart out. Shyamalan, you tore my heart out, man. Not cool, but awesome, but not cool. God damn. No, my elapsed time. Well, I guess there's I forgot that there was lead in with my video thing. Was there anything else to talk about? I mean, the acting was superb. Oh, yeah, okay. So getting back into the acting a little bit, the thing that's interesting is that Samuel L. Jackson didn't get a lot to do, at least on the surface, with this early on, because he's in a comatose state throughout most of it. But he has these very distinct facial tweaks and movements. And you get to learn how fucking brutal Elijah is in this film, because he fucking slits a dude's throat with no conniptions about it. Like, in his escape attempt, he slits a guy's throat and then has the beast fucking crush a guy, compress his chest till he died. Like, it was hardcore, man. It was fucking brutal. So if you want to say Elijah's a good guy in any... No! Elijah is horrifying. He is a bad guy start to finish. Oh, I understand why it's called Glass. He's the mastermind! Without this film, nothing would have happened after they reached the asylum. The minute he learned that he was in the place with these two, he set about just destroying everything this organization has worked for. And I can only figure that while he was trapped, while he was incarcerated, it occurred to him why people have never heard of superhumans, especially when that lady came in and started talking to him. It's so well written. It really delivers on a lot of promise. But yeah, so you have people like Nostalgia Critic who said they wanted Unbreakable, that Unbreakable was just the origin story. And I'm like, what's wrong with that? And he's like, well, there's not a lot of action. And I'm like, that's not the point of the film. The film isn't an action... Unbreakable isn't an action film. It's a drama thriller. It's a drama thriller. The action is second fiddle to the emotions and the character dynamic. And that's what this film is. The action is second fiddle to the characters being human beings in this universe. Admittedly, very poetic human beings, for Christ's sake, but human beings. I still kind of care about what he thinks. He's still a very good critic. I disagree with him on things. Oh, he liked Unbreakable. He just didn't like it as much as others. He thought that it lost its potential as a superhero film, and I think he missed the point of the film as a superhero thriller drama. It's not a strict action film. So McAvoy, I can't understate, absolutely brilliant acting. Him switching he has some really enjoyable personalities, and his chemistry with Samuel L. Jackson was superb. Especially, there's this little bit where Hedwig, the childish, the permanent 9-year-old personality, wanted to do a little dance, and Elijah's like, then dance! And the kid does a dance, and Elijah's just like, he gives him a little smile and claps for him, and it's like the most adorable little interaction between the two of them. They're just, you get the feeling that Elijah knew how to play each and every personality. And, it's so good. So good. So, final thoughts, wrapping this up, because we're hitting timer of an hour on this, on the actual video proper. Technically, about 45 minutes. Go out and see it. This is a fantastic film. I highly recommend it, especially if you liked Unbreakable and Split. I might have more thoughts on it later. These are just my initial impressions. I don't know if I want to see more in this universe. I think I'm okay with this being it. So Shyamalan, if you don't want someone writing your universe, that's okay. But if you want someone writing for your universe, hit me up. You can literally just message me on Twitter. I follow you. You can follow me back. We'll do this thing, Shyamalan. We'll do this thing, all right? I'm here for you, buddy. You've scratched my back for all these years. I'll scratch your back a little bit. You know, get those really hard to reach places. I don't know what the fuck. It's 1 a.m. I have to be up fairly early tomorrow. I'm going insane. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you liked my little diatribe here, because I just went off the fucking rails. I don't know. I'm heartbroken. David deserved better. David deserved better, man. Hashtag David deserved better. Make a trend, people. Catch you all on the flip side.